Hi, welcome back. Well, it's a real privilege for me to have in the studio someone who I've looked up to for quite a while, admired from afar as it were, and that is Ash Barker. Thanks for being here, Ash.
Great to be here, Kent, thank you.
And the reason why I admire you, Ash, is that for the past 12 years, you and your family went to Bangkok, to one of the toughest slums there, and lived there as, I guess, urban missionaries or embedded missionaries, not in a mission compound somewhere else, but right there among the people.
Sure.
What drove you to do that?
The short answer is a sense of call, that after what Jesus has done for us, we want to go and follow and join and participate what's on God's heart. And 1 in 6 people live in slums. And as doors opened up for us after years of experience in Melbourne of working among urban poverty in a different setting, we had the opportunity to go. And it is pretty crazy. I mean, it's 100,000 people in a square kilometre, and we lived right in the middle of it with my family. I have 2 kids now, and my wife, and my son Aidan was actually born there.
Wow.
And so yeah, it was challenging, but there's a joy that comes with doing the things that really matter and get a sense of meaning and purpose that I don't think you get unless you risk yourself in these kinds of ways. And we had the joy of doing that.
So can you paint a picture for me, please, Ash? I just came back from a 1.5 week mission trip to the Solomon Islands, okay? Sure. We were crammed in a little house together, about 17 of us. It was cold showers. My wife had to leave her hairdryer behind. That was pretty tough for us. You've been living in a slum for 12 years. A similar picture, or? We
did have electricity. It was illegal. They'd siphoned it off the mains, so it wasn't always working. I think the open sewers were the hardest things, and when floods come, you would literally kind of open up, and it was really hot. I mean, you just have these living conditions that are just humid and you get sick. So I had dengue fever 4 times in the first 6 months, dysentery, typhoid, typhus. You kind of get the list of them, and then your body kind of adapts to it. My body got a reboot almost, really.
But it's a scary place to take kids, though, isn't it? Because young children often don't have that sort of immunity.
Yeah, although they often can adapt far quicker than adults do. Okay. And that was the case with our kids, whose health was really good most of the time. Yeah, and they've had an amazing experience. I mean, it is one of the questions you always get, you know, how did your kids cope? And actually they, as children, they loved it. There were so many kids to play with all the time. It takes a village to raise a child. We had a brilliant village everyone was kind of looking out for our kids.
Well, including what? Brothel madams and organised crime and all sorts of dodgy people. Are they really the sort of people you want your kids to be around?
Well, there are good people at every community, and it takes a while to find them. But because we were seen as doing something good with the community centre we were based at and the social enterprises that got emerged, we got to know who was who, and that was important. And there were kind of people of peace who kind of receive you and you trust them. One of the people that we got to meet her name was Pooh. P-O-O, that was her name. And she was a great cook, and we'd love Pooh food. She'd make this food out the front of her house. But actually the price of rice suddenly went through the roof, and what Pooh was doing very cheap food that everyone could afford, but she couldn't afford to put the prices up, and so she was in quite a lot of desperation. So Ange worked with her, and they started a cooking school. And it became the #1 thing to do on TripAdvisor within 6 months. Wow. And a book got emerged. We got a photographer that came over and took these brilliant photographs of her food, but also stories in the community. And Cooking with Pooh was launched. And actually, someone put it, we still don't know who this person was, put it in the Frankfurt Book Fair. And it won an award, the biggest book fair in the world, for the oddest book title of the year. But for me, the hope in that story and the joy of that is that our families were incredibly tight. And the joy that Pooh has in helping others, and mostly that's what she's done. She's helped start Helping Hands, kind of foundation to help other people start small businesses, and has been incredibly generous with what she's done.
So Ash, traditionally a missionary has this sort of mission model where you go overseas, you establish maybe a mission school, maybe a mission clinic or hospital, and that's sort of a little compound that you base your mission efforts out of. I get the sense you're much more embedded in the community and a part of it. You're not calling people out of the village to come to your compound.
Yeah, look, in a place like a slum where you've got so many people crammed together, you just can't do a compound. There's just no room for it. Number two, by working in really informal ways with people, starting small businesses, living among the community, so you get to know who people are and who you can trust and who you can't. Even faith becomes a bit more day-to-day rather than a thing you do just on a Sunday. It becomes a lifestyle because we need Jesus to come in these situations, the things that we're all facing. So I think sharing your life with people is much better than trying to get people to come to your compound. And certainly I feel like Jesus goes before us, that he invites us in and we join and participate and we follow this living Jesus who's there. And so it's really hard to do that if you build lots of barriers and walls around yourself.
So does it work though? I mean, can you give me a list of statistics of baptisms or churches you planted while you were there?
Look, there weren't churches planted, and there was only one church when we started, and there were 5 churches when we finished up our time. There were 17 different entities run by Thai people when we left only a few months ago. And yeah, there were lots of baptisms, but you don't. For me, I don't measure it by that. They're all good things. The thing for me is, and it's Jesus' prayer, how can God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven? Are we seeing change in this community? Is it becoming more like God's will being done here as it is in heaven? They're more the things you're after than if you can put notches on your belt. And if you come with that colonial style conquest kind of impulse, people will reject you. You will need a compound. But if you come saying God's already at work, how can we join with that? No one's far away from God.
Ash, I think of the rich young ruler. Jesus offered him the opportunity to give everything he owned to the poor and come and follow me, and we're told the rich young ruler went away sad. Okay, Jesus might not ask all of us to give away all our possessions and give to the poor and follow me, but he might ask some of us, and he's asked a pretty tough thing of you. For some of our viewers, you know, watching this, what tips could you give them from a spiritual point of view of if God does put this huge, seemingly unrealistic, impossible hurdle in front of you, a task in front of you, how do you take that on? How do you not go away sad?
Yeah, that's a huge, and that text is such a challenging text for me because no matter how much we give away, and we've given away everything we have and moved twice to do the things we're called to do, but God gives you grace to do it. And I think there is a sense where we have to surrender it. Christian faith is not about how can we get things from God. Christian faith is about surrendering all to God so God can do through us what God wants done in the world. And so that does mean holding loosely the material things around us that will not last. I mean, houses, cars, boats, those things will be gone one day. But the things we do in faith and hope and love, those things remain. And so it's not worth it, I think, for the destiny that God has for each of us to be so held captive by those things. I'm not saying that's easy. I'm not saying in a materialistic world these things are not challenges, but they're doable and they're possible.
And you're living proof, I guess.
And it's fun. I mean, that's the thing. It's a joy to be able to get to do what we do.
Wow.
It's not... And after what Jesus has done for us, the sacrifices he has done, anything that we do in return is nothing.
True, true. Wow, that's really sobering for me, despite your joy. Now, if you want to know more about Ash Barker and Urban Neighbours of Hope, which is the organisation he heads up, their website is unoh.org. Did I get that right?
Yes, although I've just resigned from Urban Neighbours of Hope.
Okay.
I'm about to move to the UK.
Oh, you're moving to the UK, but Urban Neighbours of Hope is the organisation you've been with. So, look, it's a fascinating organisation. Check it out. Are there details about this book on there, Ash?
There are, and urbanlifetogether.org has all our latest details in our transition.
So Urban Life Together, there's another website for you. Hope you got your pen and paper there. And Risky Compassion tells your story of being in Bangkok.
The last 12 years, looking at through the lens of the Good Samaritan story.
Well, so check it out. Thanks so much for your time, Ash. Really appreciate it. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure.
We'll be back straight after the break.